hotel tax grants, and resolution, a couple of other things. So, for the 2020 Lebanon County budget, I've handed out, for those in attendance, I've handed out the pie charts that break down the county budget along with a summary that I've prepared that hits on what I believe are to be the most notable things as part of this budget. For 2020, the overall county budget totals $86,810,931. That is an increase over 2019 of about 4% or $3.3 million. Separately from the total budget, we primarily focus on the general fund as the property taxes are the portion of the budget that funds the general fund. That is increasing by 10.7% to $51,769,000. This budget does not include a millage increase for 2020 as proposed. The last millage increase took place in 2016. However, I will caution that there are some significant increases in some areas of this budget and have been going on for several years now that without some change in either additional revenue or some sizable cuts in services, I don't believe they can continue to be sustained much beyond 2020. I'll get into some of those in a moment. Real estate revenue is seeing very little increase. Same with fees and fines, just pretty much a flat line in those areas. Property values in the county are still high, and there's still residential construction taking place, but we've also seen a number of commercial assessment appeals that have resulted in reductions to the amount of tax assessment on those properties. So, and that's been going on also for a couple of years. It's just something that the commercial property owners, large ones in particular, have decided to appeal in an effort to cut costs if possible, and in some cases those have been either granted or awarded by the court. In 2020 revenue, we are including a sale of county land. It's 4 acres of county land. It's been in negotiation for the better part of 3 years now. It's at the corner of Walnut and East Cumberland Street, adjacent to the PennDOT Driver Licensing Center. That is in the neighborhood of about $750,000 for those 4 acres. We expect that to settle sometime on or before June. And obviously that is a one-time source of general fund revenue. So it is assisting with the 2020 budget, but it's not something that we can count on obviously year after year. Once it's been sold, the one-time revenue is gone. Also in this budget, in order to reach a balanced budget, there is $4.1 million in cash carryover, and I want to make clear that's not the general fund reserve that has been set aside over the years, but rather that is payroll cash that is set aside as we're able. It's set aside in 2019 for the first few payrolls in 2020. Each payroll is approximately $1 million, just about $1 million, sometimes a little more or less. So that cash is set aside for 2020, therefore it can be considered belonging to the 2020 budget, and so we're using that, crediting that toward revenue to balance the 2020 budget. As the years go by, that ability dwindles, and there are fewer and fewer payrolls that can be set aside. As revenue pretty much stays the same, expenses increase. That comes out of somewhere. A couple of years ago we were able to set aside payrolls that reached into March and April of the following year. We're down to payrolls that are into maybe mid to late February now. I expect any set-asides for 2021 to be even less. So my prediction is that by this time next year there won't be that cash carryover to bring into the budget to make it balance, which is why I alluded earlier to either increases in revenue or significant cuts will likely be needed to make it balance in 2021. Some of the cost increases I referred to are in the areas of public safety, and some in children and youth. The public safety are primarily the county jail being the biggest of those. As I think everyone who's followed along is aware that in June of 2019, the county began a contract with Prime Care Health Care Services for health care at the prison. While we were spending in the neighborhood of $1 million a year at the prison for various costs and care to the inmates, that has increased to $3 million with Prime Care. It's a comprehensive program. Much of the care is done in-house, which saves on transports, saves on the need to go to outside specialists such as x-rays and other services inside. However, the comprehensive care comes at a cost, and we're going to be realizing the full year of cost for the first time in 2020. So that is the, at a $2 million increase, that is nearly 25% increase in the county jail's budget. So that's a big hit. Also in the Department of Emergency Services, 911, the cost of dispatching and all of the technology that goes along with that, as well as the personnel costs that go along with that, continue to increase, and we'll be furthering our efforts to pursue a new facility for that department, which I'll talk a little about later in the capital. In children and youth, it's almost a perennial thing where just the cost of services to the youth, in-home care services, placements for juvenile delinquents, all of the services that are in place to provide support continue to go up, whether they be through the court system or just through the circumstances of families and foster care and so on. Those are always increasing, and for 2020, the county support to that agency is going up by $500,000. The annual required contribution to the pension fund will be fully paid at a cost of $3.2 million. That is paid both from general fund revenues and agency reimbursements. And as you know, the county's been keeping up with those ARC payments. I think this is going on 7 straight years now. And that, combined with a healthy performance in the stock market, have brought the pension fund to a level of 85% funded. Make a note to that, 85% was the funded level back at the end of 2018. As reported in the actuarial report that was received in April of 19, there will be another actuarial report coming once they take a snapshot of the fund at the end of 2019. And so long as the market does not take some sort of a real drastic correction or dip right now, I would expect that funded level will approach 90% as of the end of 2019. And you just heard from your fund managers a couple of weeks ago, and there's a 19% year-to-date return on the pension fund, so that points to a higher ratio for as the end of year 2019. Employee salary increases for 2020 are for some of the union bargaining agreements are for court-appointed professionals 3.5%. AFSCME, which is correctional officers, is 3.5%. County detectives are 3%. Non-union 3%. The court-related non-professionals, the social services, and the 911 telecommunicators are all in negotiations for contracts that will begin in 2020, so we don't have numbers for those yet until agreements are reached. Health insurance premiums for the county are increasing by 5%. You'll recall last year we enjoyed a flat renewal with no increase. It doesn't happen too often. I've never seen it happen 2 years in a row, so it's not really that surprising that we're seeing an increase. But a 5% increase in the healthcare field, health insurance field, is not out of the norm. It's a little bit below the average right now in the health insurance. And as you also know, we started paying 90% of our maximum premium for 2019, and that'll continue for 2020. That means we're getting closer to paying the expected amount, which means we risk not getting refunds back but we also don't have to budget quite as much in the budget, which was a savings that we realized in 2019. Deductibles and co-payments are not changing for non-union, and deductibles and co-payments for the collective bargaining units are contained in their agreements. Capital projects. In 2017, you created a capital project fund for any projects, improvements, acquisitions, upgrades, or any type of spikes in expenditures that the general fund would have to absorb. Otherwise, this helps to even it out if you're able to set aside some money in a capital fund to absorb those. Actually earlier this year in 2019, that fund was relied upon for the purchase of voter verifiable paper record voting system, which was directed by the governor. That ES&S system cost was about $800,000. Almost 80% of that actually is going to be reimbursed by the Commonwealth between the bond issue that they're floating to assist counties and the federal funds that originally came with that directive. So that's going to come back to the county. Eventually, that will be restored back into the capital project fund, which can be used for other projects. Also in 19, we included some money to begin exploring the acquisition or construction of a new facility for 911 and the rest of that Department of Emergency Services. That is in full swing. We, as you know, here in this room, you hired an architect, a project manager, and right now we're in the midst of site selection, which should be done here, I would say, within the next month or two. The group that's working on that will come to you with a recommendation. In 2020, we expect that a site will be acquired and the design for that facility will begin, with hopefully bidding starting sometime in 2020 and maybe even getting under construction by the end of 2020. The site acquisition will be made with funds that we have on hand from a prior borrowing, which was originally intended for a backup facility. That did not materialize, therefore we've kept it on hand and can use that toward the acquisition of land for this facility. Otherwise, the rest of the cost of that will need to be borrowed. This will be, I expect, to be the largest project the county's ever undertaken in terms of cost of a facility. This nature of this construction is high. It's second only to the construction costs of a hospital. There's hardening that goes into the facility. There are redundant systems in the facility, and there's a lot of technology that goes into it. So it is a rather expensive per square foot type of facility. That's why I expect it to be probably the biggest project the county's undertaken. Also out of capital, the county and city will be replacing the main public elevators in this building. They are original to the building, so they were installed back in the early 1960s. They have worked fine up until the last couple of years. We are experiencing some problems with the controls, being nearly 50 years old or over 50 years old. The parts are impossible to come by for some things. So it's time to replace those. That is a cost of $620,000 estimated, 23% of that being the city's share, and that's being included in the capital project fund. Other items in capital, $300,000 in roof replacement costs at the jail, and $115,000 for a computer-aided mass appraisal software program in the Property Assessment Office. I will note that that capital project fund has really worked well for us in the last few years. These are the kinds of spikes that prior to having that, an elevator would be a real problem to come about with, or to handle without borrowing short term or otherwise. So that really has been a good thing. So with that, that's my summary. Pie charts are included. Yep.
Just a question. I can't remember. What's the 5% equate to with the health insurance increase?
5% is approximately $400,000. Yes.
Any comments?
No, most of the folks were present yesterday. Well, we have press here today. But,
yeah, we did have a department head meeting yesterday that I shared this with the department heads in advance of the public viewing. This will go, with your action today, this will go on display for 20 days, and I anticipate bringing it back before you for final action on the 26th of December.
Oh, the day after Christmas is.
Right. Varies.
If no one has any, I just want to thank Controller Metley's department under his guidance for, the hard work that went into putting all this together and the cooperation of all the departments as well, but, and Jamie for your role in pulling it all together as well, so thank you.
Yeah,
It's a good process.
Just to tag on to that, I think really, this was probably the smoothest budget process that since I've been a commissioner, so. Takes a lot of people to make that happen. So.
I'd like to thank all of the department heads and employees for their cooperation and for making us look good, because without them, we couldn't operate county government, and making this budget work is part of that. So thank you to all the employees.
Okay, seek a motion?
Yes, would be for preliminary approval of the budget and to put it on display for 20 days.
I'll make a, go ahead.
I'll make a motion to approve the budget.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any questions? Comments? Hearing none, all in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same signs. So moved. Thank you. Again.
Okay, I've got some hotel tax grants, a resolution, and 2 other items after that. In the last couple of weeks, you've received a flurry of hotel tax tourism grant requests. They're numbered. I think you've had all of them. If you have all of them in your possession, I can maybe what I can do is just kind of walk through each of them to
We just
quick
act
summary
on them
of what they are.
individually, yes.
And then go back and act, or do you want
No,
to
I
just
don't
go on
know.
them one
We
at a
just
time?
do them, just go through them. The first
You
time
guys.
we'll act on each one.
Okay.
That's fine with me.
All right. Well, the first one then is a request from the Mount Gretna Outdoor Art Show. The project is for transportation and parking for off-site for the show that takes place at the Mount Gretna Chautauqua. They would like to have a more organized, I guess, parking process, and support of this project will help alleviate traffic backing up for the show, which would be in August, on August 15th and 16th, 2020. Funds will pay for shuttle buses and personnel hired to safely direct vehicles. I think the art show is pretty well known. I'm not sure I have to go into what the popularity of this. It certainly does bring people from outside.
Is this their first request?
I think it is the
They had a real
the theater.
problem last year. Yeah.
The theater has requested of you in the past. Excuse me. Okay, got it. Sorry.
Yeah, I tried to get to the art show last year and sat in traffic for a long, long time and never did make it.
I forgot to mention, they are requesting $7,650 is the amount of request.
Okay.
Sorry, I just didn't finish saying that.
There's a need there. If it doesn't work, I hope they don't come back for more money, because they promised they would improve the plan. So I'll make a motion to accept their request for $7,650.
I suppose I should second that to speak to it, so.
That would be
Appropriate.
appropriate, yes.
All right, I'll second the motion, and I would, reviewing each of these, and I think these are all worthy requests. But I would like to offer $5,000 instead of the full request, so.
That's exactly what
I would like to, if you're willing to amend your motion, I can vote for it. If not, I can't support it.
Well, I have no problem with giving them $5,000. So I'll allow amendment to the motion.
All right, and then I'll second the motion to give them $5,000.
And I'll just add, independent of your comment, I had 5,000 written down as well, and
So did I, I'm not joking.
yeah, and, but that's why I asked if this was their first request. I thought, you know, if we give half of what they need for the whole cost of that, that would be a nice bump for them, and let's see how they do with that. So, okay, that was my, my thought as well. Any other discussion? If not, all in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, so moved. Okay, that 5,000 request.
Okay. Next one I have is for Downtown Lebanon Main Street program, and they are intending to have a Makers Fest in 2020 for Lebanon PA made products, and they have attached a request for $5,000 that will, let's see here, they are adding an element for the Lebanon's largest bologna sandwich, by the way, they're adding for this event, and they want to use this toward the promotion of the event.
Well, I'll make a motion for the $5,000 in support of that, and I'll see if we get a second. So.
Yeah, I'll second it. I don't understand why the city would not waive the permit fee for a city event. There's some things on there that are questionable.
Yeah, city permit for $100.
Yeah.
And that's just their budget, that doesn't mean you're necessarily funding that permit this way, but, yeah.
And I certainly support their work. My question is, since they are recipients of hotel tax money, is that they still need more from these kind of things?
Who's recipient?
Of the tourism? Oh, this is
Isn't
not
it
it?
No, they don't get
This
this.
Okay.
this is the city.
I'm
effort.
good. I'm good. 100% supported.
There is some duplication downtown, though.
Okay, thank you. There it is. All right, I apologize for
No, I would I supported it for the full amount of the request, but I was talking to Jamie earlier, you know, that the Chris Kindle Market, they kept coming back for seed money year after year, and I think last year I made a comment that if they need seed money, that's one thing, but after a while you should make enough to buy your own seed. They had this event last year, and I guess it wasn't a big success. So I'm willing to make an initial investment, but hopefully it'll come to support itself.
All right, any other comment?
Question back.
Pam?
Just to answer that on the Chris Kindle Market.
Would you mind introducing yourself to the
Pam Tricamo, just to answer that on the Chris Kindle Market.